Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from and what time it is there. That way, YouTube will keep showing you more stories like this. Now, let's begin. I quit smoking 3 months ago. 5 months ago, if anyone had told me I'd be able to kick a 2-pack-a-day habit overnight, I would have laughed them out of the room. But sometimes life has its own way of changing people. There are events that happen to you that leave you no choice but to change. My name is Jack, and I've been married to Kate for 4 years. After trying for a long time, we finally got some good news. We moved to California last March. Kate was 3 months pregnant at the time, and my smoking became a huge issue in our household. She couldn't stand the smell of cigarette smoke, even when I smoked in the backyard. I understood she was worried about our unborn child, but quitting smoking was genuinely hard for me. In the first few days, I still tried to smoke in the garage. Kate constantly complained, and I knew I had to find another solution. That's when I discovered my sanctuary. Right behind our house, through a small alley between two houses, there was a fairly large oak tree that created a secluded spot. This area belonged to a vacant lot between our house and the one next door. No one ever went there, and more importantly, it was far enough from the house that Kate wouldn't smell the smoke when I came back inside. I started going there every day. The neighbor who lived right next to that area was an old man named Ben. He was about 60 years old, living alone in a small house. I had never seen him talk to anyone, and the rare times we crossed paths, he always looked at me with clear annoyance. I just thought it was the personality of a lonely person and didn't pay much attention to it, until that day. I was standing under the oak tree, smoking. It was around 8 p.m. I heard footsteps and turned to see Ben staring at me. "What are you doing here?" His voice sounded angry. "I'm just smoking. I hate the smell of smoke." "It's getting into my house," Ben said. There was something in the way Ben looked at me. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." Before I could finish, Ben suddenly stepped forward and snatched the cigarette from my hand. He threw it on the ground and stomped on it. I stood there, unable to react. Ben looked at me for a long moment, then turned and walked away. He also mumbled something I couldn't quite hear. It sounded like it was about death. I went home feeling bewildered. Kate asked me what was wrong, but I didn't want to worry her. I just said I'd had an unfriendly encounter with a neighbor. A few days later, I decided to change locations, but there really wasn't any spot more ideal than under that oak tree. I thought Ben might have calmed down after a few days, and I'd be more careful not to bother him. I went back on a weekend evening. It was starting to look like rain. I didn't see Ben anywhere, and I felt relieved. A little while later, it started to drizzle. At first, it was just small drops, but it quickly turned into a heavy rain. I felt uncomfortable, but still didn't want to go home right away because I hadn't smoked enough. I lit a new cigarette, leaning close to the tree trunk to shield myself from the rain. A few minutes later, I finally gave up. I was soaked, from my hair to my shoulders, everything. Still had half a cigarette left, but whatever. As I turned back, I noticed something strange. Red stains on my shirt. I looked down at my hand. There was also a faint metallic smell. I didn't think much of it. I just wanted to wash off the cigarette smell and that uncomfortable damp feeling. The next morning, as I headed to work, I noticed police tape stretched around the tree area. There were a few police cars and an ambulance parked nearby. I pulled over and asked a curious bystander standing nearby what was going on. "Someone committed suicide on that tree," he said. "They might have died sometime last night." I was stunned, craning my neck to try and see deeper into the scene. "Do you know who it was?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Just an old man named Ben," he replied. "Lives alone in that greenhouse over there." His answer hit me like a ton of bricks. Last night, I had been smoking right there. Those red stains on my clothes, the ones I dismissed as sap or fruit juice, and the body on that tree. It was Ben. I had been standing right underneath his body for a full 15 minutes without ever knowing. The realization made my stomach churn. For the next few days, I was plagued by haunting images and sleepless nights. Those red streaks and that metallic smell that night. Ben was right above my head. It was horrifying. On the fourth day after the incident, the local news officially reported Ben's death. His medical records were released, showing that Ben had suffered from severe depression since his wife died of lung cancer 3 years prior. The cause of his condition worsening was diagnosed as her having inhaled secondhand smoke from Ben for many years. After his wife passed away, Ben had stopped smoking and developed an intense obsession with cigarette smoke. In the final days before his suicide, Ben had called his doctor multiple times, saying he couldn't stand the smell of cigarette smoke. He claimed to see his deceased wife constantly appearing nearby, uttering words of resentment. Was it possible that my smoke was what caused Ben to constantly recall his wife's death? My smoking habit, something I considered harmless, had become the final nightmare in Ben's life. I haven't smoked once since that day. Every time I think about lighting a cigarette, the image of the red stains on my shirt, the metallic smell in the air, and Ben's desperate eyes flash vividly before me. I can't shake the feeling that my smoke pushed him over the edge. I quit smoking, not just for Kate or our unborn child, but also for Ben, the lonely neighbor I had never truly understood. The oak tree still stands there silently in the alley, but it's no longer a place I go to escape. Instead, it's a harsh reminder of what I unknowingly caused. I live each day hoping that my change can be a way to atone, however belatedly, for Ben and for myself.
I am Beavis, 17 years old. I live with my father and mother in a small house at the edge of town. We moved into this house 2 years ago. To be honest, I don't like this current house very much. It always feels cold. That's just how I feel, but my parents don't feel that way. 2 years ago, we moved here because my parents said that the old house haunted them. Our neighbor next to the old house was murdered. Her name was Erica. I still remember her a lot. She was a warm and kind woman. Miss Erica's murder shocked the entire street at the time, but only my family moved away. My parents kept repeating that they felt scared and haunted, but I didn't think things were that serious. The old house was much more spacious and comfortable than the current one. When we first moved here, I was very stressed about adjusting to the new school and making new friends. And I met Ven, whose family had also moved here just over a month ago. Luckily, Ven and I got along quite well and quickly became close friends. My parents are very fond of Ven, and his parents also see me as a second son. Most of the time, we would be at Ven's house, and I even stayed there for a whole week. My parents don't have any issues, they are always busy. The meals cooked by Ven's mother made me gain over 8 pounds in just the first month of summer vacation. Ven and I share the hobby of sitting together for hours, each glued to our own laptop. I'm into gaming, while Ven enjoys programming. Recently, Ven discovered the dark web, and he's been wandering around it all day. There's a lot of bad content on there, Ven. Be sure to filter the information you access and receive. I don't like that he's using that website at all. Before agreeing to buy me a laptop for my 16th birthday, the dark web was the first thing my parents forbade me from exploring. I listened to my parents because I wasn't really curious about what's on there anyway. There are plenty of other websites to use, and I'm more interested in games anyway. One morning, I woke up at 8:30. As a habit, the first thing I do is check my phone. A dozen messages appeared, all from Ven. This isn't the first time he sent messages like this, so I wasn't very surprised. Beavis, are you asleep yet? Beavis, I have something very important I want to show you. Beavis, please read the message. The content of the remaining messages was similar, and they were sent at 1 a.m. I sat up and replied to Ven's message with just 3 curt words. What's going on? Ven isn't online yet. He might still be asleep. I didn't worry about it anymore. It was probably some unusual news or a new app he had just finished programming. I took care of my personal hygiene and went downstairs to the living room. My parents weren't home. I had no idea where they had gone so early. While I was rummaging for some food in the cupboard, my phone rang. It was Ven. "Beavis, Ven is missing." Ven's mother, crying, informed me of the shocking news. I immediately ran over to his house. The police were inspecting around the house and talking with Ven's father. His mother was deeply distraught. She couldn't stop crying. When she saw me, Ven's mother repeatedly asked for help to find her son. "When did he disappear?" "I'm not sure. I didn't see him when I woke up this morning." I recounted that Ven had still been texting me the night before and showed the message thread to the police for investigation. "May I please go into Ven's room?" The police instructed me to preserve the crime scene and to wear gloves. I went into Ven's room, and the laptop, being the most valuable item, was still there. Sitting at Ven's desk, I went through his computer. Many browsers and applications were still open. Dark web. There were nearly 20 tabs open about this website. I ran out, gently locked the room door, and went back to carefully examine the activity on Ven's laptop. Beavis Miller, the search content on the dark web by Ven, and that's my name. There were at least a dozen tabs with such search content, but there were no search results. Why was he searching for my name? A heavy question weighed heavily on my mind. Additionally, in other tabs, I saw that Ven had searched for my parents' names and found some results, including a few videos. This situation feels anything but simple. I stood up and left the room, and Ven's mother hurriedly asked how things were. "Did you notice anything unusual?" No ma'am, I have to go now. I'll ask around with friends about Ven." I ran home quickly, turned on my laptop, and searched the dark web. I typed in my parents' names and 2 videos appeared. Click on the first video. Miss Erica. I gasped when the image of the old neighbor appeared on the screen. She was tied to a chair in the middle of a dark and empty room. Her face was terrified, and she was continuously pleading with someone. At the 15th second, 2 other people appeared, and they were my father and my mother. The most terrifying and haunting 5 minutes of my life began. My parents slowly made their ways to Erica, and they cut her into pieces. I felt short of breath, had a headache, dizziness, nausea, and chills. So Miss Erica was murdered by my own parents. The reason my parents insisted on moving houses was also because of this matter. Could Ven's late-night messages also have been to warn me? My body trembled uncontrollably. There's one more video. I took a deep breath and played it. A man had a bag over his head. Muffled sounds were coming out, and I had no idea who he was. My parents appeared again, and they were laughing with great enjoyment. The barbaric laughter made me cry. These weren't my parents. They were holding a sharp machete and yanked the bag off the man's head. "Ven!" I shouted, panicked and surprised.
I'm Ricky, 35, still single, and just trying to find some peace after everything life's thrown at me. My new place is on the edge of a quiet little town, tucked right up next to the forest. The vibe here is totally different from the packed, noisy spots I used to live in. The houses are spread out, mostly older folks living here, just looking for some peace in their golden years. The house is simple, but comfy, with a little backyard facing the woods and a dirt road that takes you into town. Across from my place is this old house with peeling paint and a wooden fence stacked with layers, making it look even older. The guy who owned it was this guy in his 50s named Gavin. Found that out when I said hi to the neighbors. I spotted Gavin a few times, not because I was nosy, just wanted to know when he was around so I could say hey. On the afternoon of day 3 after moving in, I swung by Gavin's place to say hi and share some cake. Gavin opened the door looking awkward, but he lit up real quick when I introduced myself and said hey. He invited me in, and while he sounded friendly, his voice had this weird shake to it. I walked in and noticed his place was pretty messy. The furniture was old, and it felt kind of stuffy with no natural light. I plopped down on the old sofa, and Gavin brought me a glass of orange juice. I smiled, grabbed it, took a sip, but then had to stop right away. There was a long, yellow hair floating in the drink. I tried to ignore the weirdness, set the glass down, and looked up at him. I asked him a bit about his life, and Gavin said he was also on his own, like the neighbors, and that he was fine with everything for now. As Gavin was talking, he turned away and suddenly blasted the music really loud, the high-pitched tune shaking the whole place. I couldn't hide my surprise, and Gavin busted out laughing, his face all red and puffed up, saying that was his way of chilling out. I started feeling disrespected, so I politely said bye and left. That was the one and only time I went to Gavin's place and talked to him. Every move Gavin made, every look in his eyes, just screamed weird eccentricity. Even though I tried not to judge, I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't like any of the other older folks I'd met. One time when I was coming back from town, I walked by Gavin's place and saw a young girl standing at the window, looking inside and waving at me. But the way she looked was off, way too excited for just a random encounter. I clearly remembered Gavin saying he lived alone, so maybe this was his daughter stopping by for a visit. I smiled back, telling myself not to overthink it, but I still had a weird feeling about the whole thing. Then one night, I couldn't sleep. The sound of stuff crashing, furniture being smashed, and kids crying loudly just left me feeling totally confused. I went to the window to check it out, and I guessed the noise was coming from Gavin's place. I didn't want to get involved in other people's family drama, but those sounds really made me uneasy. A few days later, I saw another girl at Gavin's place. She was by the window too, looking all rushed, waving at me way too eagerly, like she was trying to get my attention. I was pretty sure this wasn't the same girl I saw last time. The girl's eyes didn't look happy. Instead, she seemed worried and in a rush about something. The confusion in my mind just kept growing, but I kept telling myself I was probably overthinking it. Once again, I gave her a quick hello and then just took off. The third time, I saw a girl totally different from the other two, with shiny golden hair. She just stood there, waving her hand slowly, not saying a word. This time I couldn't calm down anymore, so I decided to go over and ask. But after I took a few steps, Gavin came out of the house, looked at me, and nodded his chin. I was gonna ask about the girls, but when I pointed to the window, she was gone. Who were these girls? Why did they keep showing up and disappearing? The questions kept swirling in my head, sticking with me day and night, making it hard to focus on anything else. I hit peak unease when I saw this skinny, pale girl with cuts on her arms standing in front of his house. Seeing that made it impossible for me to sit still. I decided to call the cops and tell them about all the weird stuff I'd seen. The police showed up pretty quickly. As they knocked on the guy's door, I stood at my window, heart pounding. At first he answered the door all calm, but when the police asked to come in and check, he got all tense. The police searched the house, and what they found freaked both me and them out. Up on the second floor, they found 3 girls locked up. All 3 were chained up, their bodies really skinny, covered in old and new wounds. Those girls were the ones I'd seen through the window. What was even worse and totally disgusting was that the 3 girls were the victims of Gavin's kidnapping, keeping them locked up and abusing them for the past 10 years. The little girl was Gavin's daughter with the second girl he had kidnapped. I stood outside, frozen, watching the police take that bastard to the car. His face was no longer the cheerful or confused look like the first day we met. It was just cold, blank, and creepy. I went back home, but the images of those girls, their pleading eyes, and the creepy sounds from the night before kept popping up in my head. All three of them had called out to me, full of hope, joy, panic, and desperation. I can't stop thinking that if I hadn't called the police, they would have had to keep going through that pain for who knows how many more years.
My name is Gray, 33 years old. I live alone in a small house at the edge of town, right next to the forest. 10 years ago, my life changed. I lost my job, my love, and my close friends. After some time in therapy at the hospital, I moved to this house to live and work online. I don't have any friends. It's been like that for the past 10 years, and I haven't made any new ones. I also hardly ever leave the house unless I really need to. But I still keep up with everything and stay connected through social media. Besides Facebook and Instagram, which are pretty mainstream, I also use TikTok. One evening, as usual, I was lying in my room on my phone before heading to bed. 5 more minutes and then 10 more minutes. I got so caught up in scrolling through my phone that I lost track of time and couldn't sleep. At midnight, I accidentally stumbled upon a live video on TikTok. From the very first moments, the video had a weirdly captivating drawl. It looked like a man walking through the forest at midnight. There was no talking, no visible face, and no title for the live video. No one knew what he was doing or what his purpose was. The dark, eerie atmosphere of the forest at night and the slow footsteps made me admit that he really knew how to pique viewers' curiosity. Nearly 2,000 viewers were watching, and their constant comments showed they were all interested and curious. I was hooked too, and ended up watching the live video for 15 minutes. The guy still didn't say a word, and his footsteps were getting more and more frantic. Wait! I started paying attention to the space around him. This place looks familiar. Suddenly, the guy stopped and held his phone straight ahead. This is my house. I immediately jumped up and gasped. That's exactly the back of my house. He was still holding the phone, not moving for 10 minutes. I realized I was being followed live on video, and I was following that person through the stream. Oh my God, what was going on? I closed the TikTok app and called the police. There was no telling what that creep might do next. I hung up and went back to check, but the live stream had already ended. About 10 minutes later, the police arrived. I had no evidence since I forgot to take a screenshot. The police thoroughly checked around the house, but there were no signs of trespassing. They didn't find anyone at the forest edge, or even 3 kilometers deep into the forest. I didn't know how to explain things to the police, and even after they left, I couldn't shake the anxiety. At 2 a.m., I checked the locks on all the doors in the house 3 times. I had experienced ups and downs, so I had to be cautious. I'd always prepared for any bad things to come, but I was still definitely scared. I was all alone in the house, and I couldn't help but wonder if that mysterious guy might be a killer. In the following days, I didn't leave the house and made sure I had enough food for a week. Everything was normal, but I kept an eye on that strange account's activities. I'm going to record the screen and use it as evidence for the police. Living in this confusion and anxiety is really uncomfortable. It had been 5 days since that night, and the account still hadn't been active. By the 7th day, I was starting to feel more at ease. It was probably just a prank by some teenager. That night, at midnight, I was working on the report for the new project. The notification from my phone made me feel curious, worried, and confused all at once. The strange account was streaming live. The content was the same as before. footsteps moving through the forest. This time, the number of viewers was almost double what it was before. While everyone else seemed excited, I recorded the phone screen and carefully watched the surrounding area. Once again, he was behind my house, and he was getting closer and closer. I started hearing the footsteps clearly both on the phone and behind the house. I quickly grabbed a defensive item, went down to the living room to call the police on the landline, and kept my eyes on him. I described the situation in detail and mentioned that I had video footage as evidence. The police told me to stay calm and remain in the house until they arrived. Right after I hung up, the account ended its live stream. Afraid I'd lose track of him again, I rushed outside. Pushing open the side door, I grabbed my golf club, ready to confront him. But no one was there. Suddenly, gunshots rang out, one after another, followed by the sound of glass shattering. I dropped to the ground, holding my head in my hands, then stumbled back into the house. 3 more loud gunshots echoed, and then the night fell silent. I sat under the kitchen table, my body trembling uncontrollably. "Mr. Gray, are you okay? Mr. Gray, please speak up." I heard the policeman's voice, and I crawled out from under the table, but I still couldn't say a word. The police's flashlights shone directly in my face. "Here you are. What happened?" All the lights in the house were on, and the policeman guided me to the main door. The scene looked like a disaster had happened, but thankfully, I was still safe. The window glass was shattered, and the door had bullet holes in it. The security camera had been shot and was lying on the ground. All I could give the police was the video recording from my phone. The police asked me to grab some essential personal belongings and move to temporary accommodation for the night. 3 days later, the police came to see me and showed me photos of the scene. One photo in particular stood out. It showed the name Hal engraved on the door, though it was very small. For a few moments, it felt like I'd been hit with an electric shock, leaving me completely frozen. Hal, my best friend, was also the one who took everything from me 10 years ago. Does it mean he's been released? What else could he possibly want from me? I'm not going to let anything threaten or mess up my life again. I moved to a city hundreds of miles away, not knowing what kind of trouble might be waiting for me.